In this video, we're going to talk about zeros of a polynomial function. So you have a polynomial, x cubed minus 5x squared plus 6x. And they want you to find zeros of this polynomial function. Now, other word for zeros is x-intercept. So when they ask you to find zeros of a function, it means find x-intercepts of a function. So how do you find x-intercepts? X-intercepts occur when y is 0. So in order to find zeros or x-intercept, you have to set the y equal to 0. In this case, f of x is another notation for y. So now what we need to do is we need to solve for x. The common factor is x, so let's take out x. And then you could factor x squared minus 5x plus 6. So you end up getting x equals 0, or x equals 2, or x equals 3. This means when you graph this polynomial, the graph will pass the x-axis at x equals 0, x equals 2, and x equals 3. And these are the zeros. These are the zeros of the function. So let's graph this polynomial and see what happens. As you can see, we have zeros, or x-intercept at x equals 0, x equals 2, and x equals 3. Now we're going to find real zeros of x to the 4 minus 3x squared minus 4. So let's set the g of x equal to 0. Now how are you going to solve this? Well, let's rewrite it as x squared to the second power minus 3x squared minus 4. These two are the same thing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let u equal to x squared. So when you do that, you get 0 equals u squared minus 3u minus 4. Because what I did was, instead of x squared, I substituted u for x squared. Now check this out. This is factorable, right? So you get 0 equals u minus 4 and then u plus 1. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to in terms of x. So instead of u, we're going to put x squared minus 4 and then x squared plus 1. Now, can we factor x squared minus 4? Yes. It becomes x plus 2, then x minus 2. Unfortunately, this is a sum of squares, so we cannot factor it. So now what are the values of x? Well, set each factor equal to 0, you solve, you'll get x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 2. And you might wonder, what about x squared plus 1? Well, what happens? If x squared, when you have x squared plus 1 equal to 0, what do you get? You get x equals positive, negative, radical negative 1. And you know that from algebra 2, that's what? That's imaginary. So this is not real. So there are only two real solutions that make the statement true, or two real zeros. That is x equals negative 2 and x equals 2. So what does it mean? It means when you graph this polynomial, this will go through the x-axis at x equals negative 2 and x equals 2. So we're going to graph the polynomial x to the 4 minus 3x squared minus 4 and let's see what happens. So as you can see, you have 2x-intercept at x equals negative 2 and x equals 2. Let's solve for real zeros of h of x. So again, we want to set the h of x, which represents the y value, equal to 0, and then solve for x. Now, what is a common factor? The common factor will be negative x squared, the greatest common factor. So take out negative x squared, you end up getting x squared plus x, and then minus 2. Yeah, make sure you distribute, and you get this polynomial. So now, can we factor x squared plus x minus 2? It will be x plus 2, x minus 1. Now this is x squared is x times x, so therefore you get 0 equals x or 0 equals x, and you get negative 2 equals x or 1 equals x. You have 4 zeros. However, since these two are the same, we don't have to say x equals 0 and x equals 0 twice. You could just say x equals 0. You have 3 real solutions. However, we call this a repeated 0 because it comes out more than once. It's being repeated. But we only have 3 real zeros. Now let's graph and see what happens, especially at repeated 0, which is x equals 0. Now let's see what happens when we graph this polynomial. As you can see, we have zeros at x equals negative 2, x equals 0, and x equals 1. But now notice what happens at x equals 0, which was our repeated 0. It does not go through the x-axis. Rather, it touches and goes back. So whenever repeated 0 has an even number of occurrence, it will not go through the x-axis, but rather it will touch the x-axis and goes back towards the direction where it came from. However, if the repeated 0 occurs odd number of times, then it will go through the x-axis.